Aemon Targaryen was the son of King Maekar I and Diana Dane. Aemon's grandfather, King Daeron II, named him after Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight, who was Daeron's uncle. Or father, depending on which theory or rumor you believe. As Aemon the Dragon Knight was an incredibly respected and loved Targaryen prince, it was an honor to be named after him. As is tradition with Targaryens, at Aemon's birth, a dragon egg was placed in his cradle. The location of that egg is now unknown. Most believe it is at Summerhall, having been one of the eggs King Aegon V was trying to hatch before the castle went up in flames. And lots of people died. Aemon had 3 brothers, 2 older brothers, Daeron, a drunkard, and Arion, known as Arion the Monstrous, a vain and cruel man. And he also had a younger brother, Aegon, who Aemon nicknamed Egg. He also had 2 younger sisters, Daela and Rhae. Of all his siblings, it appears Aemon was closest with Aegon. In The Mystery Knight, a story taking place before the main books, Egg shared memories of reenacting battles on a maester's green table with painted soldiers with his brother Aemon. Egg also remembered that the 2 boys used to pretend that their dragon eggs would be the ones to hatch, and if they did, they could fly through the sky on dragonback, like the first Aegon and his sisters. Growing up, Aemon proved to be intelligent, but despite being named after the Dragon Knight, he didn't have his martial nature. Aemon would say that he was a slow sword, but quick wits. Around the age of 10, his grandfather, King Daeron II, eventually began to fear so many Targaryen men hanging around the throne, and he wanted to send Aemon away. King Daeron, having sired 4 sons and 3 of them having sons of their own, told his son Maekar, "Too many dragons are as dangerous as too few." Aemon's father objected to his 3rd-born son being sent away, but King Daeron would hear none of it. So around the age of 10, Aemon was sent to the Citadel to become a maester. While at the Citadel, his brother Aegon visited him at least once along with the hedge knight he was squiring under, Sir Duncan the Tall. They drank at the Old Inn where they made fearsomely strong cider, and at one point during a visit, Aemon measured Duncan. Perhaps in future Duncan Egg stories, we'll hear more about his visits to his brother. While Aemon was at the Citadel with his books, his eldest uncle Baelor was accidentally slain by his father Maekar. More tragedy would follow for his family while he studied to become a maester. The Great Spring Sickness in 209 AC killed King Daeron II and resulted in the crown going to his 2nd son, Aerys I. At the time, Aemon had forged half a dozen links on his maester's chain. Finally, by the age of 19, he earned the title of maester. After earning the title, adorably, Aegon's daughter, Rhaella, would call Aemon Uncle Maester when she was little. Once completing his studies, Aemon took his vows and left the Citadel to serve at some lordling's court until Aerys I died without producing an heir. This death without an heir, and all others that were in line for the throne before Aemon's father Maekar meeting some tragedy, meant his father came to the throne in 221 AC. Considering he was a 4th son, that was impressive, yet tragic at the same time. After becoming king of the 7 kingdoms, Maekar summoned all his sons to court. Maekar desired to put Aemon on his small council, but Aemon refused, saying that would usurp the place rightly belonging to the Grand Maester. So instead of causing any tension, Aemon chose to serve his eldest brother, Daeron, at Dragonstone. Daeron eventually died, believed to have caught pox from a whore, and Aemon returned to serve as a maester at the Citadel. Shortly after this, his next eldest brother, Arion, died by drinking wildfire, which few grieved over. A year after that, King Maekar died in battle against a rebelling lord. The Great Council was called to decide who should rule next, due to a few heirs possibly being in line to take the throne. First, they quietly offered it to Aemon, the eldest living son of Maekar. Aemon quietly refused, telling them the gods meant for him to serve, not to rule, and that he had sworn a vow and that he would not break it. And this was after the High Septon himself offered to absolve him of his vows. So here's a man that refused to be a king, not something many could pass up. Not happy, the Great Council looked elsewhere, even at Aemon's siblings' children, but none were good options. Having no other choice, they finally decided on Aemon's youngest brother Aegon, the 4th son of a 4th son, to rule the 7 kingdoms. Aegon wanted his brother to help him rule, but Aemon knew the dangers in staying. Those that disliked Aegon at court, and there were a lot of those people, would use Aemon against him. He knew that his place was far from court, where people could never use him for their own politics. So at the age of 35, he made his choice born out of love for his brother and his family. He decided to join the Night's Watch. Before he left for the Wall, Aemon gave his brother advice. Aegon had always had an innocence to him, a sweetness his family had loved. But when Aegon came to the throne, Aemon knew that sweetness would not serve him. He told his brother the day he left for the Wall, "It takes a man to rule. An Aegon, not an egg. Kill the boy and let the man be born." Many decades later, he would repeat this advice to Jon Snow. Aegon sent his brother north aboard the Golden Dragon, insisting his best friend Sir Duncan see him to Eastwatch by the Sea. Aegon also emptied the dungeons and sent them with Aemon, so that he didn't have to say his vows alone. Aegon called them Aemon's Honor Guard. This act demonstrated the great love Aegon had for his brother. It should be noted Brynden Rivers, Bloodraven, was also one of these honor guards. Aemon claims no recruit had arrived at the Wall with such pomp since Nymeria sent the Watch 6 kings and golden fetters. At the Wall, Aemon served wisely. His wisdom and counsel were highly valued, and he was so respected that many would become silent to hear what he had to say. The maester remained humble and wise for all his days, claiming a maester counsels, not commands. Clydas, his helper, remembers one bit of wisdom he shared. Many good men have been bad kings, and some bad men have been good kings. Perhaps the greatest compliment to Aemon's character is the Lord Commander Jeor, who had an incredibly high opinion of Aemon. While at the Wall, Aemon communicated with his great-great-nephew Rhaegar via ravens. While they may have discussed other things, we know they wrote each other about the prophecy of the prince that was promised. Aemon at first believed Rhaegar was the prince that was promised, but Rhaegar believed it to be his own son. Much later, when Daenerys had hatched her dragons, Aemon then believed it was actually Daenerys who the prophecy was about, and that she was one of the 3 heads of the dragon. Aemon believed that he and others had made a translation error in the prophecy, and that dragons were neither male nor female, so it didn't necessarily have to be a male, a prince, to fulfill the prophecy. I do want to point out that Aemon was a bit skeptical of Stannis being Azor Ahai and questioned his sword Lightbringer, telling Sam, "The sword is wrong. She has to know that. Light without heat. An empty glamour. The sword is wrong. And the false light can only lead us deeper into darkness, Sam. Daenerys is our hope. Tell them that. At the Citadel. Make them listen. They must send her a maester. Daenerys must be counseled, taught, protected." By the time of the books, Aemon is over 100 years old, frail, shrunken, and blind. But his mind is just as sharp, and he's able to see true value in others, such as when Tyrion comes to the Wall and realizing the Lannisters' intelligence, he calls him a giant come among us. Or when he instructs Jon Snow to lead during the Battle of Castle Black. He also cares and serves to protect others, such as helping Sam get a position as a steward when Jon fears for the boy's life if he were under Thorne. Or coming to Jon's defense when Slynt and Thorne wanted to execute him for breaking his vows when he became a wildling. Despite his blindness, Aemon still had the experience and ability to tend wounds. When they discover the others are back, or that they actually exist in some people's cases, Aemon sends letters to the Citadel to get them to understand the threat to the 7 kingdoms. At the end of his life, Maester Aemon was still haunted by the choices he did and didn't make. In the last years of his life, he often asked why the gods would take his eyes and his strength, yet condemn him to linger so long, frozen and forgotten. One quote in particular that stands out the most to me in demonstrating this is when he tells Jon, "It hurts, boy. Oh yes. Choosing. It has always hurt, and always will. I know. Have you heard nothing I've told you, Jon? Do you think you are the first? 3 times the gods saw fit to test my vows. Once when I was a boy, once in the fullness of my manhood, and once when I had grown old. But by then my strength was fled, my eyes grown dim, yet that last choice was as cruel as the first. My ravens would bring the news from the south, words darker than their wings, the ruin of my house, the death of my kin, disgrace and desolation. What could I have done, old, blind, frail? I was helpless as a sucking babe, yet still it grieved me to sit forgotten as they cut down my brother's poor grandson, and his son, and even the little children. So you see, Jon, I do know, and knowing, I will not tell you to stay or go. You must make the choice yourself, and live with it all the rest of your days, as I have. Of course, his pain in his choices is also demonstrated when he tells Jon that love is the bane of honor, the death of duty. What is honor compared to a woman's love? What is duty against the feel of a newborn son in your arms, or the memory of a brother's smile? Winds and words, winds and words. We are only human, and the gods have fashioned us for love. That is our great glory, and our great tragedy. Aemon also regretted Daenerys was alone, and he wished he was able to show her the way. After becoming the Lord Commander, Jon Snow, to protect Aemon from Melisandre, who he feared might use Aemon's royal blood, sends Sam, Gilly, Mance's baby, and Aemon to Old Town via the boat the Black Bird. Unfortunately, on the ship, Aemon stayed out in the rain too long and developed a chill. Another theory some have is the wall's cold environment, and likely the magic there was keeping Aemon alive after all these years. Once away from the wall, his body quickly began to break down. Towards the end, Aemon suffered from dementia and hallucinations from the chill. Their arrival at Braavos marked the worst of it, and there they were forced to spend money on an inn and a healer in hopes of saving Aemon. It did not help, and they were forced to board another ship, the Cinnamon Wind, and continue on to Old Town. As the journey went on, Aemon began to forget Sam's name, and instead thought he was one of his brothers. Two lines that are particularly devastating for many fans are, "Egg, I dreamed I was old." And then when Aemon forgets his age and blindness again, "Egg, it's dark. Why is it so dark?" As he was dying, he would also ask to hear stories of Daenerys and her dragons. On his deathbed, Gilly would sing to him, and Sam would listen to Aemon's ramblings about dreams, a glass candle that could not be lit, eggs that would not hatch, and the Sphinx being the riddle, not the Riddler. Eventually, Aemon realized that he wouldn't make it to Old Town. He accepted he would die and that he would be with his brothers soon, both those by blood and by vows. However, Aemon also began to fear death towards the end, telling Sam, "The Septons sing of laying down our burdens and voyaging to a far sweet land, where we may laugh and love and feast until the end of days. But what if there is no land of light and honey, only cold and dark and pain beyond the wall called death?" He also admitted to Sam, "Death should hold no fear for a man as old as me, but it does. Isn't that silly? It's always dark where I am, so why should I fear the darkness? Yet I cannot help but wonder what will follow, when the last warmth leaves my body. Will I feast forever in the Father's golden hall, as Septons say? Will I talk with Egg again, find Darren whole and happy, hear my sisters singing to their children? What if the horse lords have the truth of it? Will I ride through the night sky forever on a stallion made of flame? Or must I return again to this vale of sorrow? Who can say truly? Who has been beyond the wall of death to see? Only the whites. And we know what they are like. We know." The night before Aemon died, he would hold Dalla's baby, rocking him and humming a song for him. When the baby reached up and touched his face, pulling on his lip, Aemon laughed. Upon his death, his body was stored in a cask of blackbelly rum to preserve his body until the ship reached Old Town. Sam's plan is to burn his body at Old Town, as is tradition with the Targaryens. In a feast for crows aboard the Cinnamon Wind, off the southern coast of Dorne, Sam put on his Night's Watch clothing despite the warm and muggy day to deliver Aemon's eulogy. He said, "He was a good man. No, he was a great man. A maester of the Citadel, chained and sworn, and a sworn brother of the Night's Watch, ever faithful. When he was born, they named him for a hero who died too young. But though he lived a long, long time, his own life was no less heroic. No man was wiser, or gentler, or kinder. At the wall, a dozen Lord Commanders came and went during his years of service, but he was always there to counsel them. He counseled kings as well. He could have been a king himself, but when they offered him the crown, he told them they should give it to his younger brother. How many men would do that? He was the blood of the dragon, and now his fire has gone out. He was Aemon Targaryen, and now his watch is ended."